Hey guys, welcome back. I am in my makeup corner, so y'all know what time it is. It is time for another story time. Today's story time is going to be about a guy friend I am no longer friends with, why I'm no longer friends with him, and all the red flags I ignored because I'm a dumbass bitch. So we're gonna call this guy friend James, right? We're gonna call him James. Me and James, basically, we met in middle school. We had homeroom together, and I don't know, we just clicked. I don't know why, I don't know how the friendship started, but we definitely clicked, and we had a little friend group already. It was me and this other guy. We're gonna call him Myrtle. Why? Bitch, I don't know. Me, him, and Myrtle, we all had homeroom together. We just kind of talk every morning, and we were all different. I was pick me, cringe as hell, loud, obnoxious. Myrtle was laid back. He was like swag. He was hot. He still is. But, you know, everybody had a crush on Myrtle. I was really shocked that he was in our friend group. Like, Myrtle, he was like a popular kid at the time. And then you got James, who he wore the same shorts, the same shoes. He just like a dad. He wore long socks. He gave off like SpongeBob, and I don't know, the friend group was just, we all three were very different. So I don't even know how we clicked. We just did, and we sat at the same table. That was our spot every morning. We would just talk, right? So, yeah. However, me and James, we ended up exchanging information, like, Instagram. I don't know at which point, but long story short, we exchanged social media, right? Now, I did have a spam account in middle school, but I stopped posting on it after a while. I would just post dumbass shit, random stuff. I had my main Instagram, and then I had my spam. Myrtle and James were both on my spam. That spam is important to the story. So, yeah, we met in middle school, and we would text about middle school things, like, I don't know, anime, memes and stuff. It was just cringe kids shit, right, as you do in middle school. And then it wasn't until, like, 8th grade, or maybe the end of 7th grade, we went from like friendly stuff, and we would like talk here and there, right? And mind you, James was very religious. Like that's something that never bothered me. He was always like, oh, like after we would text something, like we were like friends with benefits, but we never did anything like physical. But after we texted something, he'd feel guilty and be like, oh my god, you know, I'm religious. Or he'd say something about his religion. I'm like, hey, no pressure, we don't have to talk like this. Like, I'm perfectly fine with sending memes and like just being regular friends. He was like, no, it's okay. So he kept reassuring me that it was fine, and I would always feel like he was kind of making me feel guilty too, because I was like, damn, like this is kind of affecting him. I don't want to affect him, but he's saying it's okay. So it just really confused me. But he would always like, sometimes he would initiate stuff, and then when I'd initiate it back, that's when he'd pull back and be like, oh, you know, I feel guilty again. I'm just kind of like, all right, we're playing tug of war. What's going on now? So, long story short, he ends up ghosting me. He ends up ghosting me at like the end of 8th grade, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, I thought we were best friends. This was my ride or die. We talked like every day. We FaceTimed. He told me his goals and aspirations. Like, we didn't have like regular stupid talks. Sometimes we'd have deep talks about like shit we wanted to do with our lives, and I don't know, we had real conversations. And I was like, oh. And I didn't have real conversations with other people like that in middle school. Like, at the time, James seemed like more mature, because he knew what he wanted to do with his life. He was doing stuff to like set up his future, and a lot of kids around me weren't, because it's middle school, we're young. And I was just kind of like, okay, we're having real ass conversations, period. No, he ghosted me, and I was like, okay, that's fine. No, it was fine. No, that's okay. So I ended up moving on with my life. But yeah, so y'all remember that spam I talked about, the spam Instagram account? Well, I ended up posting on that again. I remember I abandoned the account, but then I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna just start posting. And I forgot who I had on the account. I didn't know I still had Myrtle and James on there, but I did, because they followed me like years ago, and I never checked who still followed the account. So I posted, and I remember James commented under the post. I don't remember what he commented, but I know I responded to it, and I think I said like LOL, because what else am I gonna say? You ghosted me, and now you're popping back up like nothing happened? Bitch. Like, honestly, I was flabbergasted, because I didn't think I had ever see him again. And another thing is, like, he texted me like nothing happened, which even made me even more mad. I was like, you're just gonna text all willy-nilly? Fuck you, bitch. Get hit by a truck. I'm sorry, that was a little aggressive, but that's how I felt, okay? And I was the one driving the truck. Then he sends me a DM and is like, hey, long time no see, or some whack ass shit like that. And I was like, yeah, long time no see because you ghosted me. You know, just jokes. And he was like, oh yeah, about that. Yeah, I want to know about that. What about it? He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, our messages were kind of intense, they were kind of getting to me, and I was feeling guilty. And I was like, did I not reassure you multiple times? And he was like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Oh, okay, so you decided to ghost me instead. That was the best decision he could have possibly made in that situation. Not in, like, telling me, hey, I'm uncomfortable with all this, can we stop? Nope, just completely leaving my life. Why didn't I think of that? I was like, yeah, I understand I made you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. And he's like, no, it wasn't your fault, I didn't tell you. You're damn right you didn't fucking tell me, bitch. So after that, we rekindled the friendship, and we also rekindled the friends with benefits thing. Again, nothing was ever like physical at this point. But we rekindled that, and then I was kind of like, hold up. I'm getting deja vu. And I texted him, I was like, you're not gonna ghost me again, are you? He was like, no, I'm not that religious anymore. And I was like, you're not? He was like, no, I'm not like that anymore. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Now, I do find it interesting that he did decide to rekindle something after, you know, he worked out his faith. Like, okay, you're not super strict with your religion. Now I'm good enough to be your friend. Now I'm good enough to talk to you now. Like, I don't know. That's kind of weird to me, honestly. It almost seemed like planned, but whatever. Mind you, all he had to say was that he was uncomfortable, and we still could have been friends. Now, this was in, like, high school, like 9th grade, 10th grade. I don't really remember 100% the time frame. I do just remember that we did rekindle, like, sometime in high school, and there were pictures sent back and forth. Mostly me. Y'all already know, I was a thirsty-ass bitch. I got my water, though, y'all. Isn't it cute? Isn't my water cute? I needed this in high school. Yeah, he only sent me one picture, which is fine. I never pressured him to. He was very shy. But I did most of the picture sending, right? As much as I hate admitting that, that's very important for later. I also forgot to mention, we also went to different schools, so we never hung out in person. Even when we went to the same school, we never hung out in person, but we were, like, best friends. Like, I know you have school friends and you have, like, real friends, but the way we interacted over text and at school, it was like we were real friends. We even went to, like, school events together and stuff like that and hung out, but it was always, like, at school. It was never anywhere else kind of thing. And I do recall him saying, like, I would ask him, like, hey, do you want to go to the mall on the weekend? And he was like, no. And I was like, why not? And he was like, I don't think my family would say yes because you're a girl. Again, they were religious. And I was like, okay. And I was very understanding about that. I was like, yeah, that's understandable. After graduation, he actually initiated a hangout. He's like, hey, we've never hung out, but we've always been so close. You want to come to my grandmother's and shoot some guns? And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good ass time. So he took me to his grandmother. I was nervous. I'd never met any of his family before, and I was a nervous ass wreck, y'all. I was like, holy shit, I hope she likes me. Anyways, we get to the grandmother's house, and his grandmother starts dropping family lore, and I'm like, okay, they're very military oriented family, so she's just telling me about everybody's history. She had, like, pictures in her study, and she was just telling me, and all of a sudden, my friend James, he has this big ass smile on his fucking face. Yo, I'm talking about, you would have thought he got the best news of his life. He was like in the corner waiting for his grandmother to stop yapping. And I'm like, okay, like what? I'm curious to see what he has to say. He's looking holly and jolly. So after his grandmother stops talking, he goes, oh yeah, my uncle was in the Triple K, by the way. The what? Huh? And I was very thrown off by that, because I don't know if you can tell, it is winter time, so I am like 10 times lighter, but I am black. I'm very much black. So for him to just drop that fact, nothing else, He didn't want to drop any of the family lore, just that one in particular, because he knew I was black. So he wanted to let me know that his uncle hated my fucking guts, and I've never met his uncle. He wanted to let me know there was no way in hell I'd ever be invited to Thanksgiving dinner. He wanted to let me know there was no chance in hell that I'd ever be invited to Christmas. He wanted to let me know there's no chance in hell that I'd ever be invited to maybe a birthday party. He wanted to let me know that if his uncle saw me, it'd probably be on sight. Mind you, I've never met this man. So immediately that threw me off. I'm like, all right. And then his grandmother co-signed. She's like, oh yeah, he was. I'm just flabbergasted because it's like, you want your friends to like your family. And if you want me to like your family, I don't think you should be telling me that your uncle was in the triple cake. That really threw me off. I was like, oh, all right. Can I have a picture of your uncle so I know if I see this man, I need to run? But, you know, me being the dumb, stupid, gullible bitch I am, I brushed it off. I was like, oh, you know, he's just telling me something interesting about his family. Something interesting that he wanted his black friends specifically to know. So, yeah, I gaslit myself and I was like, oh, he's just telling me a hee-hee-ha-ha fact. Even though I am black, maybe it's a coincidence. It was no coincidence, bitch. You're just delusional. Anyways, the day progresses, we end up shooting. It was really fun. And then we decided to drink that night. So he took his grandmother's tequila and we ended up drinking it. And things did happen this night. We did end up like kissing and making out and stuff because we were intoxicated. But he took it a step further. I'm not gonna get too into detail about that because it's still fresh in my mind. I honestly don't want to get into it because it genuinely enrages me. But things escalated, and it did genuinely mess me up for a little while. But yeah, so that ended up happening. Long story short, he was more drunk than I was. He started throwing up. He did throw up all over me. Lovely. And he threw up all over himself. But before that he was throwing up still. He made it to the toilet the first time because I'm drunk as hell, mind you, watching over another drunk person who's drunker than me. I had to drag him to the toilet. I was rubbing his back, comforting him. And then I even like took off his shirt because he was full of puke and I tucked him in. And then I had to take off my clothes too. And then I tucked myself in. I had so much anxiety because I thought he was going to choke on his throat that I did not get any sleep at all. I was in and out. Mind you, I was drunk as hell. So I was tired, but I would force myself to stay awake and I would just check on him every hour. I would even like poke him and move and be like, hey, are you alive? And he'd be like, I'm like, all right, he's good. He wakes up and he looks at me and he's like, why didn't you sleep in the guest room? And I'm like, whoa. Mind you, he didn't remember anything. That was another thing. He didn't remember. I remembered everything that transpired. I was not drunk enough. I wish I was because I still think about what happened that day to this day. I was like, oh, I slept in here because I was afraid you were gonna throw up and choke in your sleep, and that, you know, I didn't even sleep really good because I was really worried about you. And he's like, oh, okay. And I was like, damn, bitch, I should have just let you die. Next time, I'll sleep in a guest room and you'll fend for yourself. That's okay. Fuck me then for being a good friend. So yeah, I don't know why I'm putting on my contour like at the end of my makeup, but whatever. You know what? Whatever. So yeah, I thought I was being a good friend, but he ended up making me feel really shitty, and I felt guilty. I was like, oh, I hope I didn't make him uncomfortable. Like, even though I genuinely didn't do anything, I was just making sure he was good. And then I was like, hey, you threw up on me and everything. He's like, oh, you know, I don't remember. And I'm like, well, I do. So he ended up having to wash our clothes and all that stuff. After that, I did drink a few times and drunk text him, because again, that particular day really messed me up because of what happened. And he was like, you know, I would text him like cryptic things like, ugh, like you hurt me, or like little things here and there. And he'd be like, you know, what did I do? I'm not understanding. And I'm like, you remember the time where we got drunk? He was like, yeah. I was like, you really don't remember what happened? He was like, no. So I told him what happened and he apologized. He seemed really sorry, but I don't feel his apology was genuine because of just how shitty the fucking friendship was. Like, the whole friendship was one-sided. I would text him. He only asked me one time how I was doing. That was after I tried to grill myself. That, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on YouTube. I actually sent him a goodbye text, and he drove like outside my house, but I told him not to come in because I didn't want my parents to know, because that was a whole nother thing. Like, if they found out, I feel like we would have gotten into an argument and would have made it worse. So he ended up going back home. So yeah, he ended up going back home, because I was like, oh my god, yeah, don't come in. He was like, so he called me, he's like, are you good? Are you sure you're good? And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything, because I genuinely did not want him to tell my parents. And I'm in a good headspace now. But yeah, so that was the only time he followed up with me. The next thing was like, hey, are you okay? So yeah, I was the one who would have to like text him. If I didn't text him, we'd go like years without texting each other. And then he would like randomly text me on a Tuesday and be like, hey, you wanna hang out? And my stupid ass would be like, oh yeah. He's never wished me happy birthday. I would always wish him happy birthday. And there was one time I did buy him Chick-fil-A for work, and he was like, oh my god, I have the money, I'll pay you back. He was like, oh, my bank card's not connected to my Cash App. And I was like, okay, just pay me when you can. Never got that money. And Chick-fil-A is fucking expensive, bitch. Where's my fucking money? You know what? He can have the goddamn Chick-fil-A. Which I know you guys are probably throwing tomatoes at me as you know, I speak, so. So, yeah, the friendship just wasn't good. It was very one-sided. He did make mean comments to me here and there, but I was just like, oh, that's just James. James is just an asshole. And I said something stupid one time. He was like, ugh, it's a good thing you got big boobs, because you're not smart. And I was like,
James, you're so funny.
He would say things to me like that all the time. Yeah, and he would also brag about scamming middle-aged women like over VR chat. He'd be like, oh yeah, I have a sugar mama, and I'm telling her that, yeah, I'll see her, but I'm never gonna see her. I'm just kind of like, okay. I mean, the red flags are endless. Not only that, his grandmother dropped some tea. Y'all, I'm telling you, when I was at her house, we were like best friends. She told me everything. She did not give a fuck. And I remember James was trying to go into like the military. I don't remember which branch. I remember if it was like the Navy. I don't know. He was trying to go into the military, but his excuse was, oh, I'm failing the test. Oh, I keep failing. It was he told me something about a test. I don't know shit about the application process or whatever, okay? But he was like, yeah, I keep failing. And I felt bad for him. And I would always like encourage him. I'd always like try to make him feel better, because he did genuinely seem like depressed and mad about it, because ever since we were kids, like in middle school, he would always talk about how much he wanted to go into the military, make his family proud, because that was his whole family's thing, it's just military, right? So yeah, me and his grandmother were sitting in her backyard. I'm floating in the pool. This was actually another time that we hung out that she told me this. I remember going to our house twice. This was the second time, and then him and my brother were actually shooting guns, and then me and the grandmother were lounging by the pool, right? So she's like talking about him, and she's telling me that he's lazy, that he wants to be a bum, that he's bumming off his mom, she's funding his life, and that he doesn't have a job. And she's like, yeah, you see the shed? She had like a finished shed. I'm like, yeah, it's a really nice shed. She's like, that's probably where he's gonna live. And I was like,
clock that T. Clock that T.
So yeah, so she's talking about what a deadbeat he is, and I'm like, well, he's supposed to go into the military soon. And she's like, no, he's not. And I'm like, what do you mean? He told me he failed the test and he's gonna have to retake it. And she's like, he fucking lied to you. And I'm like, what? And she was like, yeah, no, he just hasn't been doing anything. He hasn't taken any tests. He hasn't even like called back the recruit people or whatever. And I'm like, so he's been just lying to me. And she was like, yeah, he's been lying to you. He's lazy and he's a bum. And I was like, okay, no, that's I had to hold in my frustration. She told me that, and the feeling I felt, I was like, so I'm just a goddamn fool. That's what you're telling me? I'm a fucking idiot? Okay, and that's okay. I'm a retired idiot, y'all. I've smartened up, I've wisened up, but back then, you could have sold me a penny. You could have sold me Abe Lincoln on the coin himself. So she told me that, and then he comes back. Him and my brother finally join us in the pool, and I'm like, I had to hide it. And then we were just talking. He's laughing with me, splashing me, and I'm just kind of like, you fucking bitch. So yeah, I was pissed, and we ended up getting out of the pool, going into his house, drying off, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but I remember going into his My Eyes Only on Snapchat, because I was curious. He's seen My Eyes Only, so I was like, well, let me see your My Eyes Only. He was like, okay, and he gave me the password. Y'all, remember how I told you how we'd send pictures in the beginning of high school, so I would have been a minor, right? At this point in time, we're adults. His My Eyes Only was only all the pictures I've ever sent him. I didn't send him any current pictures when we were an adult, because when we were adults, we steered away from that kind of relationship. Back when we rekindled the friendship, that's when we started back up. But eventually, like, it dissipated because he started talking to other girls and I started talking to other guys. But his whole friends only was just all of my pictures that I've ever sent him. Yeah, they were all under the age of 18. And we're 20 at this time, mind you. Police! Help! And I was like, I didn't know what to say. He was just kind of like, oh yeah, it's just you. And I'm like, all right. So I closed the phone, I give it back to him, and I was like, so, when are we leaving? I'm ready to go. So yeah, I remember that was something that happened to this day. I don't know if he still has those pictures. I used to have this toxic mindset. Luckily, I snapped myself out of it. You know, that just changed me. It changed me, thank goodness, because this mindset has gotten me in trouble so many times. So the mindset I had was I always thought the length of friendship mattered when it came to the person and not their personality. I would always like gaslight myself when a red flag was clearly in front of my face, and it was so annoying. So yeah, we were friends for like 7 or 8 years. That's a long time. And I was like, oh, you know, James would never say that or do that to hurt me intentionally. It was a misunderstanding. It was no misunderstanding, bitch. And I cut him off. And honestly, since he didn't bother to ever really text me, I don't even know to this day if he knows he's been ghosted. I don't even know if he knows. You know, in a few years' time, he's probably gonna be like, oh shit, I forgot to text that stupid bitch with big jiggly tits. Because he would always mention my tits. So when I say I was dumb, I was dumb. Like, if you look up dumb in a dictionary, there I am smiling like a fucking idiot. Yeah, learn from my mistakes. If you see a red flag, it's there for a reason. If the camera angle changes because I accidentally kicked my camera, this is a running theme. That just means my camera's too close, but you know, I want to get up close and personal with y'all so I can grab you by the neck and be like, bitch, if you see a red flag, turn the other way. So if you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you didn't enjoy it, well, that just means you don't have a sense of humor. And I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Bye.